On a trip that I took with Senator Graham and Senator Klobuchar, we went to Mariupol, close to the front lines, where we, with the president of Ukraine, where we took part in various ceremonies and meetings with these brave Ukrainians, 10,000 of whom have been slaughtered by Vladimir Putin in his invasion of Crimea and Ukraine. And I know you can appreciate the fact that there was a ceremony where the president of Ukraine gave their highest award to the mother of a young man who had just been killed by a Russian sniper a couple of days before. It's always very moving, and it brings home graphically what the Russians have done in Ukraine and Crimea. Crimea in blatant violation of the Budapest Agreement, for which they recognized Crimea as part of Ukraine in return for Ukraine giving up its nuclear inventory. What do you think we ought to do about Russia, General Mattis? Do you think we ought to maybe have sanctions against Russia, or basically sit by as we have for the last couple of years and watch their aggression, by the way, including their precision-guided weapons against hospitals in Aleppo? The list goes on, of the atrocities that have been committed by Vladimir Putin, while we again try a reset. I've watched 3 presidents commit themselves to a new relationship with Vladimir Putin. All 3 have been an abysmal failure. Should we ignore the lessons of history in our relationship with Vladimir Putin, and what should we be doing?
Chairman, history is not a straitjacket, but I've never found a better guide for the way ahead than studying the history. Since Yalta, we have a long list of times that we've tried to engage positively with Russia. We have a relatively short list of successes in that regard. And I think right now the most important thing is that we recognize the reality of what we deal with Mr. Putin, and we recognize that he is trying to break the North Atlantic Alliance, and that we take the steps, the integrated steps, diplomatic, economic, military, and the alliance steps, the working with our allies to defend ourselves where we must.
You are a distinguished student of history. And as we are all aware, that following World War II, a world order was established, which has held for basically the last 70 years. Do you believe that that world order is now under more strain than it's ever been?
I think it's under the biggest attack since World War II, sir, and that's from Russia, from terrorist groups, and with what China is doing in the South China Sea.
And that would argue for us making sure we're adequately prepared to meet these challenges.
I think deterrence is critical right now, sir. Absolutely, and that requires the strongest military.
Do you think we have a strong enough military today in order to achieve that goal?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Do you feel you have an obligation to make us aware of this so that we can exercise our responsibilities?
I'll be completely transparent with this committee, sir, but I would not have taken this job if I didn't believe the President-elect would also be open to my input on this or any other matter.
Thank you. You have talked about the situation with respect to Russia. One aspect of that is operations in Syria. There has been some discussion of on and off during the campaign of cooperating with the Russians in Syria. Do you think there's a possibility of that, a likelihood of that, or would that be a good approach?
Senator, Russia, to quote the chairman's opening statement, has chosen to be a strategic competitor. They're an adversary in key areas, and while we should always engage and look for areas of cooperation, and even in the worst years of the Cold War, President Reagan and Secretary Shultz were able to work with Russia, the Soviet Union at that time, and reduce the nuclear weapons. So I'm all for engagement, but we also have to recognize reality and what Russia is up to, and there's a decreasing number of areas where we can engage cooperatively and an increasing number of areas where we're going to have to confront Russia.
Thank you.